Todd is not only a remarkable, successful 30-year titan in business with having multiple businesses that generate multiplied millions of dollars.
And if that plan happens to be to build $1 million company, which I can help you do.
But he's humble. He's a man of God. He's a family man.
The world's news organizations are built on everything but positivity.
He is an influential entrepreneur and business speaker for over 30 years.
I've got to forecast. I've got to pronounce. I've got to project. I've got to share with you my ideas, my vision, and my goals for not only myself, but for you.
That's why he came up with his incredible concept of taking and creating a platform for people that are wired differently.
And you got to understand that your habits of your person and your habits of your business and your habits of your spirituality have to lead to the North Star of who you are. We need to figure out who we want to be in life.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, all right, it's Monday. I got to tell you, it's been a fabulous morning already. I got up, I obviously did my reps. I got my devotionals in. I got my, I started prepping for this over the weekend because I couldn't stop thinking of you guys. I was so excited of the success we've had over the last week and what we're going through in the business side of things and how we're growing. And we've got this amazing $31 million business challenge coming up, and actually not challenge, business system teaching. And I've got a website we're going to talk about a little bit called freetraining.toddsaylor.com. Someone just do me a favor and kick that out right now. Freetraining.toddsaylor.com. Like, I give you free training every morning because I'm training myself up for you, with you, about you. I want to help you grow you personally. I want to help to grow you spiritually, and I want to help grow you profitably. And I think this whole last week, we started to really dive into more of the business or the intricate side of being a profitable business owner. And I'm really enjoying it. But I want you to write this down. Let's see if we got some comments coming in. Lots of people. Good morning. I want you to write this down. freetraining.toddsaylor.com. Someone out there help me out. Let me see if we got that out there. Here we go. All right, we got it. Thank you, Terry. Good job. So this is what we got going on this morning. My worst student ever, who happens to be a good friend of mine. And I was talking with him this weekend. We were putting together some business plans for 2 more companies I'm acquiring. I'm working hard at that. That's going to put us up to 16 organizations, if you think about that. 16 business organizations in the Wired Differently business system. And, I got kind of going on the show and got moving through things in time. We're on like our 110th podcast, and our fan base is growing. We've been averaging close to 100 live viewers on this show at 7:30 in the morning, which is crazy. But I was just thinking about like the content and how good the content's becoming, and how I want you to remember what we're trying to do here every morning and in the mission of Wired Differently and the coaching side of it. Is I want to grow you personally, I want to grow you spiritually, and I want to grow you profitably. And I think all of these things have to come together. And that's why I bring the scripture into it. I bring the personal self-help into it. And I got to start bringing more of this business training. And so today I was just thinking about, actually this weekend, I'd sat down with my good friend. I'm not going to put his name in there. He doesn't listen to the show, which makes him part of the worst student I ever had. I mean, you would think if you were my student and you were having my services, you'd listen to the damn show every morning. You'd set your alarm at 7:30 to wake up with Todd and just get your notes ready and start writing. I mean, my worst student ever. I love this guy. I love him so much, but he's like awful. He's an awful student. And so, but I hang out with him and I talk to him and he hangs around me, and he's, I spend money with his organization. And the reason I want to bring this up, because really the topic this morning is scaling your company. I want to talk to you about how important it is to scale your company. I want to talk to you about the lesson that the worst student I ever had and still have, probably ever will have, taught me by being the worst student I ever had. But so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the worst student I ever had, and then we're going to dive into why he's the worst student I ever had. You follow the logic here? You follow the logic? All right. So, I'm sitting down, I'm talking to him, and I'm ordering some signs and working on some things. I just played my hand there a little bit because I have very few sign people I work with, but I love him so much. And over the last 6 years, I would say to him, what are you doing? How are you growing your company? How can we scale this? How can I help? Let me do more for you. Yeah, I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing. And so I buy my signs off him, and I'd always find him in there grinding away all by himself in his own business. He literally no other employees. He's been doing it forever. He's very, very good at his craft. Maybe the best there is in the world at his craft. And as many as at least 10 times I've said, can I just show you some things on scaling? Yeah. When he would come back to me, we'd go back and forth. And sure enough, we'd run into each other, and I would talk to him over the phone. I'd give him some tips and advice and some things of that nature. But he would never really engage with this process of scaling. Now, let me help you scale. Let me show you how to grow your company. And I realized, and I told him this, and I'm going to give you this comment. I want you to write down, and this is not a shot at anybody, but I literally ran into a man that I had coached in the past, and he came up there and gave me a big hug, and he said, you remember when we met at such and such place, and you were speaking, and I asked you one of the biggest advice pieces you could give me, and you looked right at me and you said, listen, if you are not growing your company, meaning that if you're not growing your organization, you're not growing your company. What I'm saying is, though, it's a job that you own, right? If how did I put it to him? Because it was a brilliant comment. The bottom line was, listen, I want you to understand that if you're working for your company, and the company is not working for you, then really it's just a job that you own. Meaning like a lot of you out there are small business owners, and I'm one of them, and I started that way. And I'm not saying this is the lesson I'm going to teach you about the worst student I ever had, but at the end of the day, I want you to understand that we are in this organizational business mindset to grow our organizations, to build our organizations, and I'm going to coach you to teach you to make sure that the company that you're building and growing is there to work for you, right? It's there to support you. You're not there to work for the company. We start that way, but we got to be in a position that we're literally making the company work for us. And so the comment to this young man was, listen to me, if the company's not working for you, and you're only working for the company, then you really don't own a business, you own a job. And so this is what I was talking to about Ryan as well. I just gave it the name of the guy. He's an amazing guy. And I said, Ryan, listen, this company is not working for you, you're working for the company. But over time, I worked with Ryan, and I said, listen, Ryan, I want you to understand that I love you, and I'm growing, and I'm learning from things from you as well. And why don't you scale your company? I have lots of people out there that I'm talking to, and I'm teaching them how to grow and scale their company. Why don't you want to grow and scale your company? And he looked at me, he says, because I don't want to. I want to be a business person. I want to be what you're saying. I want to do these things that you're saying, but I just don't want to get out beyond myself. And so I guess the message I wanted to start off this morning with is where are you at in your business life? Because I just assume that most people really, really want to grow and scale. And so the reason I start off with the worst customer story ever, the worst student story ever, is because it caused me a bit of pause. It was like, not everybody wants to grow the way I think I should coach people to grow. And my job as the coach is to really understand the student and really understand where the student is and where they're coming from. Now, I'm not going to give up on my good friend Ryan. I'm not going to give up and say, listen, I don't think you should scale, or I don't think you should grow. But what I want to look to is with Ryan is what I'm going to talk to you about today is there's different ways of scaling. I learned from this worst student ever. And he's not, I say it because I hopefully it's going to get some clicks, right? But he's the greatest guy ever. And he is the worst student because I want him to grow and scale because his craft is so well, but he just owns a job and he's happy with that. And so when he told me that he was happy with it, I just thought to myself, I said, you know what? That's okay. Because scaling, what I'm going to talk to you about is scaling is okay. Scaling is for someone who wants to grow their organization, but there's also different ways of scaling for those that don't technically want to grow in employment size, but want to become more efficient in company size, right? And so what I learned from Ryan, I said his name out loud here, is that there are different ways to coach people to scale, which forced me into this topic this morning. Was my worst student ever taught me the best lesson ever. He wants to get better. He wants to actually have the company work for him, but he's not so hung up about owning a job. And I think there's, many of us out there are just okay, obviously, with scaling or growing the organization, but not really growing it from an employment perspective, employee perspective. So I wanted to talk to you about scaling this morning. So shout out to my friend Ryan out there. He's a super guy. He's helped me in so many ways, and now he's helping me coach other people. So some of you out there, I just want you to identify who you are, because when I take you through this scaling lesson this morning, I want you to understand that we always get ourselves in trouble in business. We're always doing stuff to stretch ourselves in some regard. Some of us are more conservative than others, but we're getting ourselves in trouble and we're having to find our way out of it. And this is the process of scaling. So I want you to understand that I want you to start pointing your company in a direction where we can actually, thank you for all your listeners out there today and all your viewers. It's just amazing how many we have. So here's what I want to talk to you about. What is scaling? So a lot of you out there are really not even sure what scaling is. And so if you look it up in the dictionary, it's going to tell you what scaling is. Scaling is you go fishing and you get a knife and you take the scales off of a fish. That's scaling. Well, that's not the scaling we want to talk about this morning. There's another definition for scaling. If you go to a dentist, they're going to scale your teeth. They're going to clean your teeth. That's not the scaling we're going to talk about. There's the scale, the weight of justice, the scale of justice. You want to weigh something, it's a scale. That's not the scale we want to talk about. They're scaling a cliff. Now we're getting a little closer to scaling because we're ascending. And so I want you to start thinking about the term of scaling as in ascending, right? I want you to think about the scaling in this business world that we're talking about is ascending. Now, listen, I just want to take a really quick pause here and let you know that on October 3rd, 4th, and 5th, October 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I'm going to be having a free virtual event. Well, I got you guys right here. Hello, Abby.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, the answer to your question is yes.
Well, you're live on the show right now, and you call me. Everybody, can you guys look at this? Look at this. Abby calls me in the middle of the show. Everyone give Abby a shout out. Say hi to everybody, Abby.
Hi, everyone.
Now, why?
I know you're live.
No, like, if you call me live, that means like I've got an audio problem or something. So
Yes, and it's at 8:00. That's why I called. I'm sorry.
Well, so tell the world why I have to leave this morning a little early.
To go speak at the high school.
I've got to teach at the high school, which I think I'm going to talk about scaling now because I'm working so well. Everyone, say goodbye to Abby. Comments are coming. All right, thank you, Abby. Unbelievable. I'm so relieved that she's not calling and saying your audio's not working. So anyways, here we go. Live, free, learn my $31 million success system. I want you to go to freetraining.toddsaylor.com. Sign up. It's for free. I can't wait to do it. It's a 3-day workshop, 2 hours, 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. And it's coming up October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Okay, so there's the shameless plug of what we got going on. So let's talk about scaling. We're going to break into scaling today, and tomorrow we're going to dive into the rest of it. But I want you to understand how important it is to scaling. So the scaling I want to talk to you about this morning, and I do have a pass from my Abby telling me I got to leave early. So we're going to buzz out of here in about 10 minutes, and we're going to go coach the high school kids. So scaling, what is scaling? So let me just tell you what scaling is. Scaling in the business environment is the ability for me to coach or other people to understand how to grow their organizations, grow it, enlarge it, not only profitably, but in net worth and in revenue and all aspects of the company. So you can grow in profit and not grow in sales. And I teach people to do that. I actually guarantee them I can find them $100,000 in profit, and it's not all necessarily in new sales. So if you can scale and you can grow in profits, that's scaling. And that's what I learned and what I've taught my good friend Ryan, how to grow in profit, but not really grow in revenue. So we scaled his organization so that internally it's become more profitable without having to add more employees and add more stress. So we scaled in that regards. You can grow in scaling just by organic growth. You can grow in scaling by acquisition mode. You can grow, but the bottom line is in scaling is growing and expanding a business. Let me give you the definition I wrote up here on my board. Growing and expanding a business while maintaining or increasing efficiencies in profitability. Growing and expanding a business while maintaining or increasing efficiency. So if you're going to grow, but you don't do it profitably, that's not scaling. So when you scale, you want to make sure you're doing things in proportion. The other definition of scale, what I thought would be kind of neat for you to understand is scaling is in the music industry, you scale your notes. Do, re, mi, so, fa, la, ti, do. Do, re, mi. So that is a scale. So you ascend in equal portions in pitch and harmony. And so when you're doing it in business, you want to make sure that you're ascending in pitch and harmony. You're not just saying, I'm growing, but I'm not getting profitable. I'm growing, but I'm not bringing on the resources to sustain it. I'm growing. So that is not scaling. That is just growth. That's uncontrolled growth. And that is mayhem, right? And so scaling. So right here, the other thing is growing and expanding a business while maintaining and increasing efficiencies and profitability, right? So I want you to understand that's what business scaling is. A lot of us have heard the term. A lot of us aren't actually sure what that means. And so that's what we're going to talk about this morning. So right now, I need you to define really, who are you? Are you the business owner that wants to grow in sales, grow in size, and scale that way? Or are you like my good friend Ryan, who I said is the worst student ever because he didn't fit the early mode of what I was trying to do with him, until I realized that, yeah, he did want to scale, but he didn't want to scale in size of operations. He wanted to keep it small and something he could control himself. So we've learned how to scale it in revenue in proportion to the size that he can handle. So the scale he had was we're learning how to cut costs, how to use his time more efficiently, bring in more software, things that allow him to do more with the time he has. And watch this, you can outsource when you're in a situation like Ryan is, when you don't want to grow your organization, by outsourcing some of the duties within your organization. So you're not bringing on more employees, and you're not bringing on more debt, and you're not bringing on more things that may put you in an uncomfortable risk scenario. So I had to learn, and I want you to learn and understand that scaling comes in all different forms. So are you like a Ryan who really wants to do more of the work in the organization, but you want to scale in that regard? Or are you like, let's say, me, who wants to scale through growth? Like, I don't think that I want just one location. I want 10 locations. I don't think that I just want one entity in my wired differently business system. I want 20, and we're on number 16, right? And so when scaling comes to mind, I really want you to understand that probably the most important thing I'm going to ask you this morning before I jump off this live and literally probably 5 minutes is I really this morning, I need you to ask yourself, like, how do I want to grow? Because if you know how you want to grow, then it's going to be a lot easier to scale. And so I'm going to lay out these talking points right now this morning so that we can dive into this tomorrow. And really, thanks for the phone call, Abby. We got to go teach at 8. I think I got till 8:15, but we'll make that work. Abby, if you're listening, I need all the books ready. I need the workbooks ready. I'm going to come by the office and pick those up, and we'll head over there. All right. So I know she's listening. Give me an attaboy, Abby, if you read that. So we're talking live cryptic stuff. Everyone's in the real world of like, we're doing Wired Differently live. So here, what is scaling? So growing and expanding a business while manufacturing or increasing efficiencies of profitability. And so what we learned by that definition is that scaling can happen. Even Coach Todd needed to learn this. Scaling can happen without saying, hey, I want to be the biggest printing company in the Northeastern Indiana. Scaling can happen within the confinements of the sales that you already have, or more importantly, the operational system that you already have. So if you want more profits, then you can maybe not focus on the sales as much as, but how can we do things differently internally? And that's what we're able to do with people that are not really heck bent on becoming the biggest, baddest, largest in the planet, but they want to make sure they secure a job, secure an income. And they are 80% of entrepreneurs out there. So you're not alone. Ryan is a brilliant man, very successful man. He's the worst student I ever had, though. Why? Because he wasn't seeing things the way I wanted him to see them. But you know what? We stayed together, and now I see him the way he sees it. And now I'm able to, as a coach, I'm able to say, okay, sometimes you're a little thick. Your job is to get in and coach the student and find out and understand how you can get to the student and find and get to the goals that they need. And so I want to thank Ryan for that lesson. My worst student ever, but a great, great friend. So that's what scaling is. Now, number 2, tomorrow, we're going to talk about 2, 3, 4, and 5. So number 2, I want you to know, why is it important to scale? So we're going to talk about why is it important to scale, number 2, now that we know what scaling is. And number 3, we're going to talk about examples of scaling, like how to go into your organization and actually scale. Now, we've touched on a lot of this already this morning. So I'm going to take you to number 4, which is scaling methods. How can we actually take methods and apply them to our organization, whether we're a company of 1 or 2 or 3 that wants to just maintain the operational size they have, and how can we scale that? Or if we're a company of 50 employees or 60 employees that want to move to 70 or 100 employees, there are different methods of scaling that you need to look at and think about as you put it together. And number 5, challenges of scaling. I want you to talk about what you're going to have to look forward to in the opportunity to scale. What are some of these challenges you get to look forward to? Now, when I say look forward to challenges, I think it's important that we all know that we're going to face challenges when we go into certain situations. And when you decide to scale or to grow, you're going to have challenges. And so why don't we talk about the challenges that would come from growing yourself or scaling your 2 or 3 man shop or your 100-man shop? We want to look at the inherent challenges that come along with that. And then last but not least, tomorrow we'll close with here's some great examples of companies that have scaled. And I'll talk to you about 2 of my companies that I've been very successful at scaling. And then we'll talk about some of the biggest companies in the planet, like Apple and Microsoft, and how they have scaled and the overarching idea of why they're scaling and what they're doing. So I want you to understand, and I just want to draw the scripture in as I bring this morning to a close, because we've got a busy day. And I know that you guys are kicking off your week on a Monday, and I'm throwing a lot at you. And I just cannot believe hundreds of viewers live on this morning show. So listen, I want you to understand that I'm here for you. I'm your coach. And I want to talk to you, obviously, about your personal growth, your spiritual growth, and obviously your profitable growth. This message we're talking about right now is really honing in how to grow you profitably. And we're going to really dive into it tomorrow. I'm super excited for that. But from a personal growth perspective, I want to thank Ryan. I want to thank many of you out there who challenge me as a coach, right? And ask me to think of things differently. And you look at me, I was up till 10 o'clock with another student smoking cigars, and we had a little cocktail, and we talked into the late hours of the night, and he challenged me. I challenged him, and I love this man so much, but he finally had to really understand how he was going to scale. This whole thing is scaling. When I started thinking about it, almost every client I have is actually being coached on scaling. And so why not give you guys the idea, understand some of the things I'm teaching people on how to scale and the psychology of scaling. So last night, the man I was with for some 3 hours, he needed personally coached on his personal side of how to scale, right? Ryan and I are talking about how to grow on a system side or a functional side of scaling. And the last thing I want to talk to you with is David. In Psalms, he shared with us Psalms 34, 4-5. He gave us the scripture this morning, and I want to just talk to you about what he gave me this morning in the story of Psalms. And he says, and he's in a bit of difficulty in Psalms when he's writing this, and he's talking about he is actually fleeing Israel from King Saul. And King Saul had taken over Israel, and David had actually just already conquered Goliath, and his life was in topsy-turvy, and he was moving around, not finding his way, but he was a conquering hero. He had actually married King Saul's daughter, but he was in hot water again. I don't know what is about David. He just never really knew how to scale early in life. He never really knew how to really look at things early in life, and he was always in trouble. And that's really what I want to talk to you about this morning from a spiritual perspective, because a lot of us get in so much trouble in business that we don't know how to get out of it. And part of it's because we don't scale. Part of the problems we have in our businesses in many, many cases is that we just don't scale our businesses. We go in it headstrong and we think we know what we're doing, and we start selling, and then we don't know how to handle it or make quality products, or we don't know how to support it when we start the growth. And that's where I give a guy like Ryan a lot of credit is that he knows his comfort zone. Every customer is always going to be happy. But at the end of the day, he gets in trouble because he flatlines, and he can't get any further than where he is because he's capped at his greatest weakness, right? Which is an operational risk challenge. So David's in a situation where he's scared, he's in trouble again, and the king's going to kill him. I don't know what he did at this point. So he flees Israel and he goes to Philistine. Well, actually, the funny thing about the story is it's a comical story. David flees to Philistine. Well, Philistine is exactly the place where he conquered Goliath. And to make matters worse, he ran into somebody and they gave him exactly as he was running to get out of trouble in Israel. He runs into a country that he was known for the greatest murderous warrior to ever take down their greatest soldier. And he's walking around with actually Goliath's saber or his sword, right? And so he's hiding from a king who's after him. He goes into a country that he conquered and who was the greatest a warrior ever. He walks into Philistine and he thinks he can get away from the king in Israel and hide in Philistine, the place where he conquered Goliath, and he's a most wanted man. He thinks he can hide there, and of course they recognize him. I think it's a bit comical about how David is so damn confused all the time, especially in his early life. And the reason I want you to understand that is the Bible talks about David being confused, and here's what he says in Psalms. At the cusp of all this, what happens is David is about ready to be killed again in Philistine because he ran from the king of Saul in Israel. And they say, what are we going to do with this guy? And what David does is he fakes like he's a crazy guy. Really, he literally starts to babble like an idiot, banging his head on a door, and he's frothing from the mouth. And they say, what are we going to do with this crazy man? So they cast him out of the city. So that's the story setting up this Psalms. And David says after all of this, he says, I sought the Lord and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look at him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. And so I guess what I want to share with you that in this regard is that David was always in trouble. And us as business people, we're always in trouble. David was in trouble because he didn't scale. He didn't take things in proportion. He didn't plan the right way all the time. Although he was a man of God's image, right? Built after God, he was constantly getting in trouble. We know that from the very, very beginning of the stories of David. Here he is in trouble again, and he's confused. And he runs from one thing to get to another, but he runs into more trouble because he ran from something he was already in trouble from. Instead of facing it, right, David gets more trouble because he decides not to face it. He decides not to scale with it. He decides not to confront it. And so instead of talking to God, he runs to Philistine. And he's so confused that he actually grabs a sword from Goliath of the guy that he conquered to put him in a bad place in Philistine. He's so confused that he's running around Philistine trying to hide from one person to another. But my point of the matter is, my friends, as I close this morning, is I need to understand that you're going to be confused. You're going to be in a situation where you're just like David. We all get confused. We all are in a position where we need to learn that we need to scale. We need to scale personally. We need to scale spiritually. And I'm going to teach you how to scale profitably in your business. I want you to understand that there's many types of way of scaling in your life. Personally, there's many ways of scaling in your spiritual life. We could talk about David right then. And then there's many, many systems and ways for I to be able to teach you how to scale in your company. I want you to understand that this is what we're here for today. I want you to be here tomorrow. I want you to understand we're going to talk about scaling your business. I'm going to talk to you this morning right now as we close. I know you're confused. I know there's a lot going on in your life right now. I know that money's hard. I know that employees are hard. I know ideas aren't coming easy. I know that the business world that you're in right now is complicated and very competitive. And I know you're confused. And I think sometimes you run from things to avoid problems and you run into new problems. And that's because we're not studying. That's because we're not praying. The thing about David is, and what he's trying to tell us in the scripture is, I sought the Lord and then he answered me. Right? David just took off running to Palestine. He didn't seek the Lord in Israel. He took off for Palestine. He ran. He grabbed a sword from his Mortal Kombat that was archived. How goofy is that? Takes it into the enemy territory, thinks he's going to hide in the city. He was confused. He ran. And that's what we do. We take our problems and we run from them, or we move away from them, right? And then we get more confused because our head's confused and we're not thinking about it, and then we put ourselves in a worse scenario. And I don't want you to do that. That's what I'm talking to you about this morning. I want you to parallel yourself. Are you the person that wants to scale in a small way, or are you the person that wants to scale in a large way? And I don't want you to run from the problems that you're having right now. I want you to face them right now. I don't want you to go to Palestine. I want you to stay right here, right now, and stay in one spot. And figure out how you're going to start. And then I want you to seek the Lord so he'll answer you now, not after you're in touch. That you have to make a fool of yourself and be shamed by faking that you're crazy. That's the shame David's talking about. Seek God first. Scale first. Don't do these things as an actor. I'm here for you as your coach. Listen, get to toddsaylor.com. Check out the free training.toddsaylor.com. Get to my free virtual. We're going to talk about this and a lot more things. October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's coming up right here. We're going to have hundreds of you on a Zoom. Take those faces. We're going to send you curriculum. Great free stuff. It's going to be awesome. I'm here for you. God bless you guys. Have a great day. Don't be like David. Don't flee. Go to God first. Let's start